Well, I think that wraps up topic 1 and all the shit that's going on over there. So let's talk about topic 2. WWE on a better light. Let's talk about WWE2K23. So for those of you guys who've been listening to the podcast for at least a little while, I am a pretty big fan of the WWE games and the 2K games and franchise that they've been releasing over these past, is it 10 years at this point? Maybe a little shorter. And 2K22 was a big step in the right direction from the problems in 19, especially 20 with bugs and all that jazz. They took the year off from development, released 22, and it was a really good game overall with a lot of good changes and additions to it. So I kind of wanted to talk about 23. What am I kind of hoping that is changed leading into 23, now that we have some rumors swirling around that around Rumble time they're going to have an announcement, maybe some gameplay, and going forward seeing what they add to this year's game. So first off, I guess the big question or big elephant in the room is, when are they releasing this thing? So with previous releases, back when they were on their yearly development cycle before they took the break with 21 not releasing that, so that break after 20, they would usually announce things or start showing things around SummerSlam time, so July, August time period, and then they would release the game around October, November, so that holiday season. We haven't heard anything so far about this upcoming year's release, so they're going to, if rumors are true, January 28th, they would announce, reveal, etc. Now the question is, are they going to maintain the release schedule that they set up last year in springtime, so March, April, around WrestleMania, or are they going to go back to the October timeframe, November timeframe, and the holidays? From a time period of announce to release, obviously the timing still works out, that would kind of work out where it would be that spring schedule, and I think that works. Because once again, it's around Mania. A lot of people are talking about wrestling, obviously, during WrestleMania season. So releasing a game around that point, I think, would be perfect. But it's really up in the air because, obviously, we're only going off of 1 year of 22 with the skipping of a year and them releasing in spring. We'll have to see if they release in spring or if they release in October. And I think, obviously, the event or release, whatever you want to call it, the press event on the 28th is really going to be our indicator. If it is simply, a splash screen of whoever is on the cover this year, we know there's still a lot of development time that needs to be put into this game, and that would probably lead to a later date of the October-November period. If the rumors are true where it's gameplay and maybe a little bit more of like story mode reveal, etc., that shines at least a better light in terms of, oh, okay, this thing isn't, I guess, as far back as we may have thought and is on the right track towards release in the springtime. So we'll have to see how that event goes, if that event is even real and happening. I hope it is, because I'm very excited to see what them as a company as 2K decides to adapt add to this title and keep it going in the positive direction that 22 set us up at. Now, on that note, we're back to the year-to-year schedule of releases. From a game development standpoint, probably can be a little bit rough, especially with all the changes that they need to make roster-wise. WWE has an influx of talent, whether it's the Raw roster, SmackDown roster, NXT roster, whatever. There's a shit ton of people that contractually, I guess, if they figured that out, they need to include in this game. That's a lot of entrances to do, a lot of character models to do, animations to do, movesets, whatever it is. It's a big undertaking. From year to year, for any sports release title, it's a task, and sometimes it can be seen that phoning it in sounds bad, but there are some releases that are better than others. I'll compare it to another 2K series. NBA 2K, in my personal opinion, has kind of fallen into this like samey, mundane game year to year, and it's led to me taking breaks, 5+ years in the past of like, nah, it doesn't, nothing feels special. It feels like more of the same, which I get it. How are you going to change a basketball game all that much or a wrestling game all that much? And I think the thing that, just really helps drive that forward is the love and care. Not to say that developers aren't putting everything they have into this game, because I know developers work very, very hard for their titles, but sometimes it just doesn't have that hook in you that you feel it should. And WWE 22, when it came back, I feel had a lot of things that drew us in as players to make it interesting. Granted, it could have been the year gap and break, which I understand, distance makes the heart grow fonder, or whatever that saying is. It could have just been that, but I also feel like 22 added a lot of things that were good and positive from a player perspective. So we got, more showcase mode, which seems to be their bread and butter for at least these historical matches and telling an individual wrestler's story in these games. We had the Rey Mysterio one this year. It was fine. It was okay. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was fun to do. You had your return of universe mode, which I know a lot of people are into, so kind of creating matchups that you want to, mixing, matching, creating those shows, and then playing out stories that the way you want to. They added a different perspective in that mode where you could assume the role of a superstar. So it kind of gives you kind of an arcade mode of like, okay, I'm going to play as Shotzi Blackheart. What kind of story am I going to run into playing as her or playing as these other wrestlers? And what rivalries am I going to go to? What challenges, obstacles do I need to kind of overcome to get to the title, whatever it may be? So that was a cool alternative that I did enjoy a little bit. You had the return of their my superstar, or whatever they decided to call it, the Create a Wrestler story, which this year's I thought much more interesting than past years. Granted, I only played maybe a couple hours and never made it to the main roster or anything, but it was interesting dealing with the backstage stuff. How does that role-playing game aspect, how does your character communicate with other superstars? Are you going to be a good guy? Are you going to be a bad guy? What decisions are you going to make? How are your matches going to go? What path are you going to take? Are you going to go to NXT? Are you just going to go to the main roster? What titles are you going to chase after? It was an interesting formula that they kind of created for this year as compared to past, where I've talked about it before. I remember doing one of their Create a Superstar, Create a Wrestler modes where it was similar in ways, but it was very focused on rivalries, and that was a big thing they added, but it didn't seem like the rivalries mattered. I remember fighting, at the time, Colin Cassidy for 6 weeks in a row. Same fucking single match over and over and over again for those 6 weeks when I'm not even in a rivalry with him. Never got any cutscenes or anything interesting, or at least somewhat exciting about the rivalry I was building up to in the next month's pay-per-view, but I had to fight this giant asshole week in and week out. And it just wasn't fun. It wasn't exciting. And at least in this year's iteration, while of course you're going to run into some repeat scenarios where you're fighting similar guys from their roster, whatever it is, but the stories that they were telling in between the matches and the progression there felt a whole lot more interesting and engaging from a player perspective. So they added that. They added a brand new mode, which they kind of adopted from, your NBA 2K, your FIFA Ultimate. Well, I guess FIFA Ultimate Team is the mode. The FIFA games, I don't know if Madden has one, but it's like card collector type mode. And I know this was very divisive amongst WWE2K fans. A lot of people, some people loved it, some people hated it. And I get criticisms from both sides, or at least the perspectives from both sides. I thought it was a lot of fun because in playing NBA 2K, that was the mode I typically gravitated towards, was the My Team. Collecting the cards for the superstars, doing your matches, trying to do certain objectives, do a move a certain amount of times, or, have this kind of star ranking in the match, whatever it may be. It was something different that these titles haven't done before, so it made it exciting to try it out in this game universe. I think that was a positive. even if it doesn't click with everybody, the variety is what counts here. What mode do you, the audience, connect with? Do you just want to jump into exhibition modes with your friends and just duke it out in there? Sure, go for it. Do you want something more serious where you have that creative side? You have universe mode. Do you have something that you want to create a wrestler and go through your own wrestling journey that you never got to IRL? Then you got the the create a superstar thing. So even if the card collecting thing didn't resonate with everybody, I think it was a good addition, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they add to that in the future. A change that I hope they make, and I guess this will kind of skip ahead before I talk about the other new mode that they added, is anything that is unlocked in that card collector. I don't remember what it's called. I'm so sorry. Anything you unlock, superstar attires, different looks, like completely different looks from the current day of the superstars, needs to be unlocked in exhibition mode. Just your general play. For some reason, they decided to lock these attires in that mode. So what I mean is, with the different cards, they were very good at, updating it constantly, where there were different card packs. So you had, certain pay-per-views that they would call back to, or NXT talents from like when they started NXT compared to where they are now. So you got old attires. Those were locked to that game mode. So Seth Rollins in his white attire from SummerSlam, locked in that mode. Rhea Ripley from her NXT days and NXT UK days, locked in that mode. Old New Day and their, pink attire from when they won the tag titles at some point, locked in that mode. Stupid. Very dumb. Why not include that as an unlockable that you're still working towards, whatever? Make it so a player has something to chase after and then is rewarded by using it wherever, whenever they want. That was stupid. That would have been great. So that's a big change that needs to happen, specifically in that mode there, is having that freedom as a player to use what I've earned in that anywhere. And then you got your last addition to this year's mode, and it's more of a return to form, but it's 2K's first crack at it, and it's the time I put the most effort and time into, is the GM mode. I fell in love with 2K's GM mode. Granted, it started off a little bit rough, but it just was a great time and a lot of fun to do. They took a lot of what Ukes and THQ did back in the day with the original releases, took that, implemented it here, and then kind of created a little bit more of their own addition to it with the card system. So stamina cards, contract cards, getting your superstars to push them to a full contract instead of a part-time, or obviously your more aggressive offensive cards against your opposing player, whether it's a CPU or a real person. All good stuff. Like I said, started off a little bit rough. You only had the 3 matches you could do per week. There were no tag titles. There was no mid-card title. You only had the top title for the men's and the women's roster. And then, it was there. Now, granted, after the first update, they did add more. So you had, instead of 3 matches per week and then 4 on the pay-per-view, you now got 4 per week and 5 on the pay-per-view, with the addition of an additional promo segment, whether you wanted to change somebody from heel to face, have them do a charity event, whatever it might have been. A step in the right direction, and they added the tag team titles, men's tag titles, women's tag titles. Great. This allows for you, obviously, to use your roster a little bit more openly, freely, and have the belts used as a story plot point if you wanted to. Obviously, changes they could make to this mode, adding the mid-card titles would be nice. Just another element you could do and have into storytelling in your own head or planning or whatever it is. And it's funny to say, but more roster space or more of a money cap would be nice. Sometimes you run into it where you're really struggling for superstars, like especially early on in the game. filling all these slots. And then there's other times where you do have too many and you're trying to figure it out and people are losing popularity, whatever it is. And then the whole stamina game is an issue of like, this guy's really tired, I have nobody to sub in. That can be rough. So there's some tweaks and things like that they definitely could make in this mode to make it better. And I think they will. This was their first attempt at GM mode. And I think for a start, this was great. The best feature I think they added into 22 for their GM mode was the custom rosters. And granted, you could do this in the old games, pretty sure. But the freedom of the creative suite to obviously create your wrestlers, create their movesets. And in GM mode, when you don't simulate, just put in a picture for like their icon, you can fantasy book the shit out of this GM mode. For example, I'm putting in people who are currently in WWE who might have gotten released that didn't make it into the game, new signees that weren't even around when the game was released, like 2.0 people. Bringing them into the fold keeps it fresh in GM mode. If you really wanted to put in the work and effort, you could make an AEW roster and do an AEW GM mode. Same with Impact, same with New Japan, whatever you did. That freedom and flexibility just adds layers into the fun that you can have in this mode and allows for, you really to get your money's worth out of this and come back to the game. It's not something that you're going to play for only that first launch month and then the interest dies. You're not there. This was something that allowed you to come back. Showcase mode, on the other hand, you're probably only going to run through that once. You're not going to run through that multiple times. So, good move there. Interested to see what they add from there. One last thing, I guess, on that first update, like I talked about the GM mode, the stuff they added. They did right their wrongs. That's, my words. And in the Create a Superstar, there were things available in there that were once again locked in that mode. So, for example, Dominik Dijakovic, his character model, his entrance, his animation were in that mode, but current day's character was T-Bar, and he was available in the exhibition mode. So you could see Dijak in that mode, and it was great, it was cool, but you couldn't get it anywhere else. They did eventually, after that first update, allow for characters like Dijakovic, I think King Booker, King Corbin, some other ones. They did add them and make them available everywhere else, which was very much appreciated. And that was something they haven't done in past releases, where obviously they'd update and they add DLC, but it didn't seem like they were listening to the audience and taking these things into perspective and adding free content to their already released game. And I was hoping, for that with the card mode that they would listen and have that become available, but unfortunately did not. Hopefully in 23, as we talked about, they will allow for that. So what are some other changes I'd like to see in 23 that maybe we didn't get in 22 or other releases? I think I kind of alluded to it, but updates. More consistent updates. They did a great job of updating that first update being huge, and I believe they had maybe one more after that where like they added the NXT 2.0 arena for free. That was very nice of them. But another thing they also did, was the card mode. They added constantly new packs to that mode. That keeps that fresh, keeps that interesting. I think by them adding more consistent updates like this and showing that it's not a games of service, but showing that at least they still care and want that user experience to be positive. After the first release and first patch or whatever, having, things constantly worked on would be nice. Granted, I get it. With a year-to-year release cycle, you kind of have to find a point of like, we need to work on the next game. We can't keep going with this one. And I think there's other teams and games that do this constantly, where there's updates to fix certain things or roster changes. Once again, I'll circle to the NBA thing because it's a more prominent example in my head. That game makes constant updates. I don't know if the WWE game team is smaller, so they can't allocate those resources to it. Maybe that's the case, but if they're there, it would be nice. Even if it's just in the span of the DLC release schedule. So usually with the release schedule, you get DLC 4 packs over the next 4 months. So like even having half the year, give or take, to kind of have some kind of support system with these updates or changes or free additives would be something that's nice. Once again, I get they want to put the resources into the following game, but you kind of want to keep the audience on good favor. I don't know if that's the right terminology. Good faith. Leading into your next year, because obviously you want them to buy the next year. If your game's crap now, it's not really going to help them later on when they decide to put their $60, $70 into your next title. So there's that. I'd like to see them put a little bit more TLC with the updates there. We talked about the card mode. They absolutely need to do that. If you unlock something in there, it's a very cool asset. Someone put a lot of work into that. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's very simple to do a palette swap of colors at least. But why not? Why not reward the player for working towards this, saving resources, maybe even using real-world money to get these packs, to get these other superstars, to then just be like, nope, you can't use them anywhere. Let your players use the things they earned, worked for, maybe bought anywhere. Why not? I think their creative like online system, it's gotten better over the years. I think that still needs a little bit of work. Searching with certain hashtags is fine, but sometimes isn't the most responsive, or at least their organization. Like, you had like a most recent, you had a top downloaded and a top rated. I think you can merge top downloaded and top rated, really, because wouldn't that be one and the same? The rated, I guess the player has to give it the thumbs up or whatever. Some people definitely don't. I try my best to do that whenever I'm downloading something, but sometimes you just forget because you got a list of things that you want to try and get. Just try and make that navigation a little bit better. I'm not exactly sure how they would do that. I think the hashtag system is probably the easiest way, or the best way to at least have a start towards it. But that's something I feel that needs to happen. Showcase mode. Showcase mode is good, but as I talked about earlier, it's pretty much guaranteed to be a one and done. I don't know how you can make it so it's worth a replay. I think it might just be worth making that mode a little bit longer. So this past year's they did Rey Mysterio, which is great. They had like 10 matches or so, and you had a whole bunch of unlockables you could do, and eventually you get Dominic Mysterio out of it. Great. I think something they could do is either multiple superstars, do that, or if you can, do a longer paths with somebody. Still give players the option to maybe hop and skip around to any match they want to, because, granted, maybe people don't connect with the legends or superstars of the past, and they don't really care about unlocking XYZ person, but they really care about this new current guy or attire or arena or whatever. Let them work towards that. Give the players the freedom of that. But yeah, it would be cool to see more retro superstars. The legends have never been something I've been, like, oh, I want to play as X or play as Y or Z legend. It's just like, oh, they're in the game. It just adds to it. So I know that's a whole licensing thing, and you got to get approval or more royalties paid out. If they're able to do that, that would be really cool to see more legend characters, especially in, like, I don't know, just for example, Attitude Era type attires, not just the same character model where, like, okay, I'm going to use Kurt Angle as an example. A Kurt Angle that looks like current day Kurt Angle, and a Kurt Angle that looks like, when he first showed up, or at least the Attitude Era. They should look like themselves, and it shouldn't just be the current day with hair and the palette swap of the attire. It should look at least a little bit different. I get it's more work to do, all that jazz. That would be something that's neat. And that's not something you need to recreate every year. That's an asset that I feel can be reused. It's not going to be the end of the world, especially with any game like this where the roster is huge. You know, if it's a retro, quote unquote, character, I think the audience will be a little bit more forgiving if that character model looks the same or if animations are the same for their entrance, whatever it might be. We're going to be a little bit more lenient because we have that option available to us. It just kind of adds depth to the game. So once again, I get it. It's a whole royalty thing, whatever, but that would be one way I think you could build on Showcase to make it at least, maybe not a little bit more replayable once again, but maybe a little bit more worth it of an experience if you had either multiple superstars or you had a lengthier mode there with some more interesting unlockables. Years ago, they did like that WrestleMania. I don't remember if it was WrestleMania Legends, but it was some title where they had at least one match from each WrestleMania leading into 30. That would be really cool. That's another way you can get the Legends involved. It's an option. I don't know. The creative superstar is tough. Like I said, I think this year was a better one. I think the main thing with that is just make it compelling for what I am doing as the player. Have me engaged in different rivalries with superstars that kind of progress. Don't have it repeat too much where I'm fighting the same guy 20 times. That's fine. Let's talk about unlockables. So everybody, well, maybe not everybody, a lot of people like unlockables. We talked about it. Adds depth to the game, makes it more interesting, adds a whole nother layer of something to do or things to people to play as, matches to do, whatever it is. So unlockables, it's nice to have the option to have them. One of my biggest pet peeves, so you can get the season pass, right? Gets all the DLC for you and also allows you to unlock everything that the game has to offer. I'm all for that. Some people, once again, you have the time to play. You can put X amount of hours into it, and it's great. Other players, doesn't matter, maybe don't have that time. Maybe you can only play for 30 minutes because you have work or your family life or other obligations. You can't dedicate 5 hours a day to sitting at a console, PC, whatever it is, to play a certain title. Totally get that. Totally get that. Get the time you can and enjoy the time you have. So this accelerator allows you to unlock everybody. So if I'm person A and I have the time, maybe I want to work towards those things. But I still want the season pass because it's all the DLC bundled, right? On person B, you don't have the time to invest in it. You'd rather just, yep, I want everything. Here's everything available to me, and you enjoy your playground. Regardless of your situation, player A or player B, I think there should be an option with the accelerator to use it or not to use it. I think in the past, with 2K's releases, there was maybe only 1 year they gave you that option if you wanted to use it or not use it. Every other time, you buy the season pass with this accelerator and it instantly unlocks everything and gives you no choice. For me, once again, this could be just selfish. For me, that takes the fun out of it. Why am I playing this game then? I'm not working towards anything. And like, once again, I like it. I like the freedom of like, here's all your toys. Go play. Go nuts. Do your thing. But for me as a player, the reason I play, Hades, the reason I play God of War, the reason I play Call of Duty, whatever it may be, there's incentive and things to work towards. Whether I want the best gun in Call of Duty or this certain camo skin, or in Hades I want to unlock this certain weapon or use this ability, whatever it may be. It's incentive for me to put the time in to work on it and enjoy myself. with the accelerators unlocking everything, takes that experience out of it. And it's like, what's hooking me? What's keeping me going for all this time? Granted, once again, this year definitely took a lot of time. I played it a lot, but I was playing GM mode. Rarely played the other modes, even exhibition and the regular matches. It was just the managing aspect that took my time. I don't know. It's a small thing to kind of nitpick, but that's something I think I would change for the better, or at least it would allow, once again, the freedom for players to enjoy the experience how they want to experience it. Everybody always talks about fantasy matches, what matches you want in there. I get it from a technical standpoint. Some things can be certain limited, and especially with how the game tries to prevent itself, it's very not like super graphics intensive compared to other titles, but like they're trying to find this nice mix of this game looks pretty but is also fun. And sometimes if you go too far in the one direction, the other suffers greatly. And not to shit on the AEW game, but they know what they're looking for. They are going for a gameplay focused game, which is great, but graphically it may not stand up to par to 2K's, which is fine. That's, some people weigh things out more than others, totally a-okay, but from a business, 2K wants that nice kind of mesh of both worlds, where they want something that graphically looks really nice but is also really good play style, which I think they've gotten better and made that more user friendly as the years have gone on. Selfishly, I would love them to allow for more players to be on the screen at once, for example, i.e. a Royal Rumble for that ring to get crowded. But I get it from a technical aspect that may be something tough to do. We got better with it this year. We got 8. So, step in the right direction. If we can keep that going, great. If not, whatever. I do enjoy that they added multi-man tag team matches, so 2v2v2v2. Maybe adding more game modes, at least to the multi-man teams, or bigger match, like more participant matches. Maybe adding some freedom there would be nice. I don't know if they had any backstage stuff this time. And once again, this could be my lack of knowledge of not putting in time to the exhibition matches. But I don't know if they added that. That could be something. Yeah. I guess last but not... Well, no. Yeah, I got nothing else. I don't know. I thought I had another thing. I guess a small thing would be cool if you had more announcers, but I get that's a whole rigmarole of like recording and figuring out the time and scheduling. I get that. Same with ring announcers. Just add a little bit of variety, add some depth to that game, and might increase the livelihood of interesting things that would happen or engage the player's experience. But it is what it is. Well, looking forward to 23. Looking forward to seeing what maybe they talk about coming up on the 28th, if that does happen. And if it doesn't happen, when the fuck we're going to see this game. And hopefully it's just good. Hopefully it's just more of, we add to the experience, we take fan feedback, try and do what we can, and, add to it. I understand, once again, year to year, that can be tough. We've seen that with numerous franchises where they can struggle or it feels the same. And sometimes taking a break is good. Obviously with 22, great stuff done there. The Assassin's Creed franchise taking a break. They did the whole open world thing with people loved. We'll just have to see. Time will tell. Hopefully they can keep headed in the right direction or the positive direction, make some good changes, some fun changes for the players, and keep them engaged as they go along. Well, everybody, this has been another episode of the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can join the podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011 every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can join the chat like Rainbow did today. join in the fun and the chaos. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video in MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support us, whether it's leaving a comment or review, sharing it with someone you care about who you think would enjoy the program. It may seem small, but it is very much appreciated. Helps the channel grow, helps the show get bigger, and just mean the world to us. And we're highly professional here. I don't know if I said at the beginning of the podcast this was 158, but we're racking up those numbers. So I appreciate you guys hanging out today for our lovely two-sided coin of topics today. Hope you guys had some fun. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.